everyone, my name is Kane and I'm a part-time streamer and content creator. This video might be a bit long cause it's my first video and I included my personal history on playing Lost Ark in the first part. So if you are an experienced player and only here for the guide, please feel free to skip to
3 minutes and 31 seconds
for skill overview, build and skill rotations, etc. If you are a new player and interested in my experiences with the game, you can start the video from the beginning. So I've been playing Lost Ark pretty much every day of work since its Western release on February 11th, 2022, and I just hit the 2000 hours mark on the game. Lost Ark is the first MMORPG that I played consistently for a really long time, and love to play it from day one and still love it today. So about my roster, I play on NNE Sasha, and my main character is a 1475 Robot Spirit Soulfist. I also have a 1460 Peacemaker Gunslinger, a 1445 Surge Deathblade, a 1403 Ignited Sword, 1370 Yoho Simulator being Empress Arcana or Arcanist, Deathbow Striker, and Loyal Companion Sharpshooter. My last character is a Pinnacle Glaivier that I gave up on playing cause it's boring to me at the moment. I also planning on getting an artist Ayaya as my last character when she's released to complete my roster. So currently, I'm planning on making a series of class guide videos on the characters that I play in Lost Ark, and today I'll start with my main character, Robot Spirit Soulfist. Without further ado, let's get into the video. First of all, the reason why I choose to play Robot Spirit Soulfist as my main is because it is one of the most challenging and fun class to play and master in this game. And I'm that kind of person who likes to do hard things and enjoy the happiness that brought by dopamine and endorphin after I hit big numbers on my skills. You will know what I'm saying when the Spirit Bomb Awakening hits perfectly. So about the pros and cons of Robot Spirit Soulfist, the good thing about her is that she has high mobilities and a very high burst DPS. Her awakening, specifically the Word Decimation or the Spirit Bomb, is the highest damage single hit skill in this game, and her skill animations are very fancy and satisfying to watch. It kind of reminds me of the anime Dragon Ball. She is also a class that heavily rely on resource management and skill rotations. This one could be both a pro and a con, which means she could have a higher damage ceiling if played right. Meanwhile, she is very weak in bad hands. This also means other than learning the boss mechanics in raids, it requires a lot of practice to master this class. Other cons including that the downtime is a bit long compared to other burst DPS classes. It is also very expensive to build her, and it is annoying when you miss the Spirit Bomb Awakening. So to be short, high risk, high return. Let's now talk about the skills and tripods. Soulfist skills including blue and red skills, and the blue skills are generally the self-buff skills, synergy skills, and utility skills. And the red skills are the DPS and sub-DPS skills. Let's start with the first and the most important skill of the skill set, Energy Release. Energy Release is your self-buff and or synergy skill. The tripods for Energy Release that I choose to use are Quick Prep, Ready Attack, these two are necessary to have, and the last one being Tenacity or Shadow Purification depending on the fight. You can choose Tenacity for a more stable playstyle, or Purification for the fights that have higher chances of getting debuff from the bosses, such as Fulton Gate 1. You can take Rage Ruins for a chance of a higher attack speed for the skills that follow Energy Release, or Gilwind for a faster skill animation. This is a personal preference. Merciless Calmo is your main DPS skill, and the tripods are Harder Hater, Cold Hearted, and Double Up, and your highest level of Gilwind Ruin should be used on this skill. Flash Step is your mobility skill. It is a chain skill, which means it can be pressed consecutively for 3 times. The tripods for this skill are Excellent Mobility and Victor Shot, and Quick Recharge Ruin is used here. Crippling Barrier is another main DPS skill. You should choose Quick Prep, Harder Hitter, and Keen Judgment, and another Galvan rune is used here. Whether holding the skill or tap it depends on the situation. If your other skills are on cooldown, you can hold the skill to wait for the cooldowns of the other skills. If you want to squeeze in more skills into the rotation, you can tap it to save time. Bolting Crash is your counter skill and your party synergy skill, and it also got weak point level 2 and decent stagger. This skill is the all-in-one skill except for damage. There are two sets of tripod choices you can use. The first set of tripod you can use is Valiant, Fighting Spirit Enhancement, and Tough Shoulder. In this case, you want to use Blade Rune here. This set of tripods allows your character to move 3 meters forward, which grants more mobility, and the counter animation is faster and crisper. Volant and Tough Shoulder could be replaced with enhanced speed and aggressiveness for a higher chance of counter and more stagger, because it changes from a single hit to 3 hits, and all 3 hits are considered as counter, and Overwhelm Rune could be used here for more stagger. Force Orb is a quick sub-DPS skill, and the tripods to be used are Quick Prep, Powerful Wave, and Scatter Wave. You can use Quick Recharge Rune on this skill, however if you have legendary Conviction and Judgment runes, you should put Conviction or Judgment on this skill to proc the cooldown and resources. Heavenly Squash is another sub-DPS skill. The proper tripods are Harder Hitter, Harsh Training, and Exquisite Attack. This skill is a multi-hit skill, so the rune choices here are quite diverse. You can use Quick Recharge, Overwhelm, or Blade. If you use Conviction on the Force Orb, you should use Judgment on Heavenly Squash. These runes for these two skills are interchangeable based on personal preference. Other than that, if you use Conviction or Judgment rune on this skill, you can also use the Burning Hands tripod to replace the Harsh Training tripod for a higher chance of triggering the Conviction Judgment buff. Shadowbreaker is your sub-DPS and main stagger skill. It also have weak point level 2. The tripod should be Predator, weak point detection, and Sixth Sense. Your highest level of Overwhelm Rune should be used on this skill to maximize the stagger. Energy Blast is another main DPS skill that you can choose to use to min-max the damage. If you use the skill, the tripod should be Tenacity, Weak Point Detection, and Ferocious Strike. You should use Galvan on this skill. I put this skill at last to introduce is because this skill cannot be fitted into the rotation before you have level 9 or level 10 cooldown gems on it. But if you met this requirement, you could replace Shadowbreaker with this skill for more DPS potential. As for the awakening skills, as Robot Spirit Soulfist, you need to use the Spirit Bomb for maximum damage. However, if the boss patterns are not so predictable in some of the raids, such as Vikings Gate 2 and 3, Hamehameha or the Decimation Ray could be a better choice. A side note from the skill overview is that these skills are the best choices if you have over 1600 spec. If you are not, Lightning Palm and Pulverizing Palm could be used to replace Crippling Barrier and Bolting Crash. The gems are pretty simple. You need to have damage and cooldown gems for all your main and sub DPS skills. Specifically, 5 attack gems, 5 cooldown gems. The remaining slot should be a cooldown gem for energy release. When you are building up your character, the gem priorities for the skill should follow this order. The important tripods you should track along the way of building up your character are as follows. For energy release, you should track quick prep and ready attack, merciless pommel, all 3, flash step, excellent mobility and victory shot, crippling barrier, all 3, heavenly squash, all 3, force orb, all 3, shadowbreaker, all 3, and last, energy blast, weak point detection, and ferocious strike. In terms of combat stats, you wanna prioritize specialization as high as possible, and crit is your substats. Specifically, you want to get a crit plus spec necklace, and all other accessories should be on spec. In the current version of the game, you should aim for 1600 plus spec and around 500 crit. The more spec you have, the shorter the downtime will be, and therefore the more damage cycles will be faded in throughout the raid. As you can see from this chart, at 1600 spec, you have around 15 seconds of downtime. We'll talk about the crit stats after we go through the relic gear set. In terms of engravings, the 5x3 that I'm running for now are Robust Spirit, Grudge, Kimblown Weapon, Crystal, and Priestess Dagger. However, this is not the optimal engraving for 2 reasons. One is that I don't have a 9-7 stone for an additional +1 engraving. The second reason being that Adrenaline 3 will outdamage Priestess Dagger 3 by around 3 to 4% in the long run, so the optimal engraving at the current version of the game should be Robust Spirit, Grudge, Kimblown Weapon, Crystal, Adrenaline, and a +1 engraving if you have a 9-7 stone. This +1 engraving have multiple choices. You can choose Spirit Absorption, All-Out Attack, or Awakening. In addition, if you choose to use Priestess Dagger 3 as your 5th engraving, that +1 can also be Adrenaline 1. After we get Asian accessories, we can then optimize the engravings by upgrading that +1 to a level 2 to achieve 5x3 +2. In addition, along the way of building the engravings, you can go with this priority list as you progress through late T2 and early T3 content. Robust Spirit, Grudge, Crystal, Adrenaline, or Priestess Dagger, Kimblown Weapon. Aside from that, an interesting budget build also caught my attention while I was playing the game. The engravings for that build was Robust Spirit, Grudge, Kimblown Weapon, Crystal, and Awakening 3. This build is also called the RNG Spirit Bomb build. With this build, you can catch your Spirit Bomb for around every 70 to 80 seconds. However, the build lacks crit, and it relies heavily on the Awakening skill. You can use this build for fun, but I don't recommend it as your final build. As for the gear set, prior to Argos, you want to use the Chaos Dungeon sets. After you have conquered Argos and Heart of Reha Abyssal Dungeon, you should switch to a 5-piece Preordained Legendary set and make your chosen weapon. When you reach 1445 plus and collect enough Voten Bones and Viking's Wings, you can then craft the 6-piece Hallucination set. So about crit rate, the 6-piece Hallucination set gives 15 plus 5 is equal to 20% of crit rate in total. 500 crit stats gives around 18% crit rate, and Adrenaline or Priestess Dagger gives around 15 to 20%, plus the 7% from the card set, the Lost Wind Clave card set. This combines to around 60% crit rate in total, which makes the Kimblown Weapon work effectively. So here's the general rotation that I'm using when Awakening is on CD. So first, turn on Hype, close the gap by using Bowling Crash, Energy Release, Heavenly Squash, Force Orb, Shadowbreaker, Merciless Pommel, Crippling Barrier, hold until Bowling Crash is ready, Bowling Crash, Flash Step, Force Orb, Shadowbreaker, Heavenly Squash, Energy Release, Bowling Crash, Crippling Barrier, Merciless Pommel, Force Orb, and Shadowbreaker. Now we should be out of hype. During downtime, we should use normal attacks and dodge. When hype is ready, all the skills should be ready as well. Repeat the cycle from there. The TPS for this rotation with my build is around 400 to 450 mil, and this is the DPS during the 20 seconds of the hype. Here's the showcase of what 2 consecutive rotations will look like. The average DPS is around 300 mil. When the awakening is ready, here is the rotation that includes the spirit bomb. Turn on head, bolting crush, heavenly squash, force orb, shadow breaker, energy release, spirit bomb. Bolting crush, flash step, force orb, shadow breaker, heavenly squash, crippling barrier, hold until bolting crush is ready, energy release, bolting crush, merciless pommel, force orb, shadow breaker. Then normal attack until the hype is back up. Then continue with the previous cycle without using the awakening. The DPS for this rotation with my build is around 450 to 700 mil during the 20 seconds of the hype. The cycle with 2 consecutive rotations will be like this. The average DPS is around 350 to 400 mil. Soulfist is the less popular class due to its difficulties. It only raised a little bit more attention recently because of the buff from the last balance patch. However, most of the newer Soulfists are Energy Overflow Soulfist, cause it is meta right now. Even though both Engravings have similar DPS ceilings, Robust Spirit requires the player to change rotations based on the fight, and sometimes if the player cannot manage the situation properly, the DPS will be in shambles. On the contrary, Energy Overflow Soulfist is less punishing if the rotation is a little bit messed up, because Energy Overflow Soulfist has high swiftness, longer hype time, infinite energy, and the Dominion Fan relic set. In my personal opinion, no offense to the AO Soulfists out there, Robust Spirit Soulfist is the real Soulfist, and this playstyle is a better fit for the concept of the Super Saiyan from the Dragon Ball. However, feel free to play EO if you like its piano playstyle. After all, it is a different kind of fun, plus it is cheaper to build according to the NA market. So to wrap this up, since this class is easy to learn, hard to master, you will have a deeper understanding of the game as you get better at playing Soulfist. And the more you know about the game, the better you will get at playing Soulfist. So if you consider yourself a Giga Chad, play Soulfist. If you love Lost Ark, play Soulfist. If you play Soulfist, you are a legitimate Lost Ark Giga Chad. That's all there is for the guide. I hope you enjoyed this video. If it helped you at understanding the class and the game better, please consider like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.